And now for our next news special report.
In a stunning turn of events, President Biden has invoked executive privilege to conceal the audio recordings of his interview with Special Counsel Robert Hur. As the classified documents scandal continues to unfold, the White House's refusal to release the tapes has sparked outrage among GOP lawmakers and raised serious questions about what the president might be hiding. Is this a cover-up of Biden's cognitive decline or a desperate attempt to shield him from further scrutiny? Now, in times of political turmoil and uncertainty, it's crucial to have a stable foundation for your financial future. And just as President Biden seeks to protect his interests by hiding the interview audio, you can safeguard your retirement with the timeless security of gold. With the Bishop Gold Group, America's trusted precious metals dealer, you can convert your vulnerable stocks and funds into solid gold, shielding your wealth from the volatility of the market and the whims of politicians. Don't let your retirement be at the mercy of hidden agendas. Call Bishop Gold Group at 877-343-9893 to secure your future today. Now, the controversy surrounding President Biden's handling of classified documents has reached a boiling point as the White House invokes executive privilege to block the release of audio recordings from Biden's interview with Special Counsel Robert Hur. Now, the move has sparked fury among House Republicans who are now seeking to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt for refusing to turn over the tapes. In a letter to the House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jordan and House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, White House counsel Ed Siskel claimed that the absence of legitimate need for the audio recordings exposes the GOP's true intentions to chop them up, to distort them, and use them for partisan political purposes. That's what Siskel further accused the lawmakers of inappropriately demanding sensitive materials to manipulate them for potential political gain. However, the fact remains that the official interview transcripts are already public knowledge. So this begs the question, what is President Biden so desperate to hide in the audio recordings? Now, during a heated House Judiciary Committee hearing today, Representative Chip Roy passionately argued for the release of the Biden-Hur interview audio. Roy highlighted the contrast between the ongoing trials against former President Trump and the Biden administration's effort to conceal potentially damaging evidence. Watch this.
For yielding.
Yeah, I think the gentleman, I would note that my colleagues are decrying the fact that some of our colleagues are in New York. Let's remember what's happening in New York. We have a clear sham trial being perpetrated by a judge with clear bias. We have a situation where the entire thing relies on Michael Cohen, who, just to say the least, is a convicted felon, has been disbarred, has pled guilty to perjury and various financial crimes. The judge, his own daughter, is a known Democrat political operative, has clients, including some of our Democratic colleagues, I think even on this committee, including some Democratic colleagues who are, in fact, advising Michael Cohen at this particular moment. All of that is occurring at a time when they're calling Michael Cohen when they could bring forward Alan Weisselberg, who is sitting over in Rikers, but for some reason they're not bringing him forward, which one could guess because it wouldn't help. And the fact is, this is all playing out while bootstrapping a federal law into a state crime in order to try to navigate statutes of limitations. It's ridiculous. It's patently absurd what we're seeing unfold with our system of justice, the politicization of it. And now here we sit, and my colleagues on the other side of the aisle don't like that we simply want to see the best evidence available when, in fact, it is not, as one of my colleagues talked about, trying to effectively get a second stab at criminal proceedings. This is an impeachment inquiry. That is inherently not a criminal proceeding. It is a unique function of Congress under the Constitution of the United States. And we're investigating very legitimate questions, conflicts of interest of the Biden family, the significant amount of money that has flowed to the Biden family, the extent to which the president has had material that he's not supposed to have in his possession, which the special counsel firmly pointed out, and in fact, in this committee, testified to. And in fact, the president and his lawyers have contested Special Counsel Hur's assessment. But the truth is, Special Counsel Hur in this committee stood behind his sworn testimony. We've got evidence that we can see in transcripts, but all we're pointing out is it is a both impeachment function and legislative function of this body to be able to use the power to be able to go to the Department of Justice, which is supposed to be overseen by us in the first place, by the way, and to say, we simply want to see the best evidence, because if you look in the terms of the criminal proceeding, which is not an impeachment inquiry and is not the legislative function, it is an independent, unique function in the criminal inquiry that they're carrying out at justice, that clearly what you saw from Special Counsel Hur was a great deal of dependence on the demeanor of the president. An extraordinary amount of dependence in terms of his determination on whether to pursue charges depended on how he assessed the demeanor of the President of the United States. That's all this is about. It's not political. It's not about something that might show up later for political purposes. It is very much to the heart of whether or not and what the president knew about the materials that he had, which the special counsel firmly acknowledges and wrote were illegal for him to possess. And the question is what was his intent? And it is critically important for the purposes of this body to determine where we're going to go with an impeachment inquiry or any legislative inquiry to determine what the president's demeanor was during that interview. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
This is an impeachment inquiry. That's what he declared, emphasizing that Congress has a unique constitutional function to investigate these matters. He stressed the importance of examining the best evidence available, particularly given Special Counsel Hur's reliance on Biden's demeanor during the interview when determining whether to pursue charges. Representative Ben Cline echoed Roy's sentiments, dismissing the White House last-minute claim of executive privilege as a common tactic to evade accountability. Cline argued that executive privilege does not apply in this case, as the investigation pertains to Biden's actions as a private citizen after his vice presidency. Watch.
Gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I'm disappointed. Moved to strike last word.
Was recognized.
I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised that we're getting a letter from the White House citing executive privilege the day before the hearing, the day before the markup. And as my colleague from California knows, who's the ranking member on the subcommittee that I chair, responsiveness and accountability to oversight, this is common behavior for this White House. Wait until the last minute and then throw either an excuse or a few pages of documents that have been subpoenaed, much of which is publicly available, to us to try and fend off exactly this, a contempt citation for failure to comply. You know, it'd be one thing if it were the subcommittee that I chair. It'd be one thing if it were documents subpoenaed at the Department of Health and Human Services or Education or the FTC about collusion with big tech, about the COVID information that they tried to limit availability on the internet. There are so many different ways in which this administration has failed to be accountable, failed to be held accountable, and failed to provide the information that we've requested, that we're not surprised. But this is under an impeachment inquiry. Last year, we approved an impeachment inquiry in this body, which heightens that standard and actually increases the burden on the administration to show that there is some reason why they should not be providing this information. And executive privilege is not applicable here. We have a request for a recording. As was stated earlier, the White House doesn't get to decide how that information is provided, which transcript is better, which transcript is appropriate. If we want one transcript, they give us that one. If we want the other one, they have to give us that one. this investigation is about whether the president willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. Actually, that was a conclusion. And then Hur's investigation also concluded that Vice President Biden had, quote, strong motivations, unquote, to ignore the rules for properly handling classified materials. Those strong motivations included an advance of $8 million that Biden had planned to receive for writing his memoir, a book he had decided to write, quote, months before leaving office. But why has the DOJ not sought to bring charges against the president for his actions, both as vice president and a private citizen? Well, for one reason, Special Counsel Hur noted in his report that although there was sufficient evidence that Biden had willfully retained classified information, he wouldn't recommend taking it to trial because the president would appear to a jury to be, quote, sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. But Hur knew that to make the $8 million book advance, he would need reminders. But many of those reminders are classified, and yet he shared them with his ghostwriter, Mark Zwanader, who holds no security clearance. As part of the impeachment inquiry in the Judiciary Committee's legislative oversight, the committee has sought information among other things, President Biden's mishandling of classified information. And the DOJ refuses to provide the committee with these recordings. And Attorney General Garland not only confirmed that this material has been turned over to the White House and not us. He said this during an appropriations testimony, but failed to see the hypocrisy in allowing the White House access to these recordings, but not the Judiciary and Oversight Committees. So he rejected the notion that DOJ should release the recordings and said they needed to remain confidential, but at the time had no response as to how to provide the recordings to the White House, as to how he provided the recordings to the White House. So these recordings are important to our investigations because of the superior evidence that the transcripts, the recordings provide, because transcripts do not capture demeanor evidence. And there's evidence that the White House has doctored official transcripts to hide a verbal slip-up from President Biden already. So if they're already doctoring official transcripts, we need the tapes. We need the tapes, and they have an obligation to provide them to us. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The question occurs on the amendment offered by the gentleman from New York.
Now, Klein also pointed out the hypocrisy in allowing the White House access to the recordings while denying them to the Judiciary and Oversight Committees. He emphasized the significance of the recordings in providing superior evidence compared to transcripts, which can be doctored to hide verbal slip-ups, as the White House has, we know, done in the past. As the battle over the Biden-Hur interview tapes rages on, the American people are left to wonder what secrets the audio might reveal about the president's cognitive abilities and his involvement in the classified document scandal. The GOP's relentless pursuit of transparency and accountability has exposed deep fissures in our justice system, raising concerns about the politicization of legal processes and the erosion of public trust. If you have value from this report, tap subscribe. It's time for my final thought. If President Biden has nothing to hide, why is he so adamant about concealing the audio recordings of his interview with Special Counsel Hur? The White House invocation of executive privilege only fuels suspicions that the tapes might reveal the true extent of Biden's cognitive decline or his willful mishandling of classified documents. The American people deserve full transparency from their leaders, and it is the duty of Congress to ensure that justice is served without fear or favor.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Now keep up your quest for truth with this next news report. And if you found our channel enlightening, join the millions who agree with you. Tap subscribe. Thank you for watching the Next News Network.